Hi everyone, I'm Tom, and today I am very excited to be showing you Frosthaven. This is a standalone sequel to Gloomhaven, the hulking great box of dungeon crawling and exploration and beautiful card play and character progression and unlocking things. Well, all of that again, but with plenty of new things, of course. The name Frosthaven is where this game is set, in the icy north, the northern coast. This is the great big map of the game. And so in this video, I'm just going to go through basically what I've got in this prototype, an overview of some of the new ideas and things in Frosthaven, the core gameplay, the essential thing of play two cards, do the top thing of one and the bottom thing of the other. That is the same, and having events and things, but there are extra things on top of that that hopefully I'll show off in this. This is all in aid of course. Frosthaven is on Kickstarter next Tuesday, the 31st of March. This video will hopefully go up a little bit before that, and once the campaign is started, it will be linked in the description and in the corner of the screen for you as well. And there will be a full playthrough video coming on the launch day as well. As I mentioned, with all of the Kickstarters, I was paid to make a playthrough video, but I thought that this would bloat the playthrough video too much because I found that I went on for ages. So I made it into a separate overview video instead, and we can have this up earlier than the playthrough. So that's a nice little bonus as well, isn't it? So first of all, since we are zoomed all of the way out here, I will talk about the great big map of Frosthaven. And of course, Gloomhaven came with its own great big map that you put stickers on as you discovered locations and crossed them off as you completed those scenarios. So the top half of this board is, the equivalent of that in Frosthaven. But down here, we have the outpost of Frosthaven, because without going into detail in this, there is a Frosthaven outpost that is, frozen behind icy walls 6 months out of the year, and we are, trying to get to it to help it out. And that leads to some of the main new things in Frosthaven. So one of those is town building. You see, we have this great big outpost here, full of spaces for buildings. And we do start out with some, but as the game progresses and as characters retire, we are going to populate the outpost with our own set of buildings. So the buildings that we start off with, there is the craftsman, where we can convert resources into items, because, up here in the frozen north, your gold isn't really as good as it was in Gloomhaven. People aren't as money hungry, they are resource hungry. It's, a barren, frozen wasteland out here, and so any resources you can get are worth far more than gold. So crafting your own items is a big part of Frosthaven, as well as the alchemist, where you will convert herbs into potions. Now you'll pick herbs to combine together, and in quite an experimental way, your result is found from a chart that you'll punch out. You'll kind of open the door like an advent calendar and find out what the potion you have concocted is, and then you'll get that from the item deck. There's the workshop, where you'll be able to create specific, story-based things like a boat or a sled by, spending resources to do it. And certain scenarios will not be available unless you have got those things. If it's something that is only accessible by sea, you will need to have crafted that boat. And then there is the barracks, that is the defense of the city, and we'll come to that in a little bit. But yeah, the city needs defending here. There are more buildings as well. There are walls that will protect the city. There are things that will generate resources like mining lodge and things. And then, as I mentioned earlier, more will be unlocked as characters retire. The resources are obtained thanks to the new loot deck, which, in Gloomhaven, your loot was money that you spent on things. But now, instead of just having coins to collect, we construct a loot deck based on what the scenario tells us. And when you loot something, you draw from this deck and find out what you found. So it might still be some money, but it can also be resources as well that you will spend at the various buildings in Frosthaven. There's now a seasonal cycle out here in Frosthaven. As we progress through, we will switch between summer and winter. Every time we go back to town, time passes, and once that's happened 15 times, the season will switch. And that is going to set off completely different city and road event decks. If you remember those in Gloomhaven, in the summer, they're going to be quite similar to how they were in Gloomhaven. The city events, usually good things, road events, sometimes be risky things. But in the winter, everything changes, everything is much harsher, And the town is under attack in winter as well, and that's why we need that defense value for it and to build the walls and things. And the other really exciting new thing that I don't have to show you at the moment, and I probably wouldn't want to look in it because of spoilers, there was a town records book in Gloomhaven, and I don't want to do any spoilers in that, but as you made certain progressions in the game, you unlocked more pages in this town records book, and it had its own story going through it. Well, that is back in Frosthaven, but, it's similar. Instead of just being this story that you read as you progress through certain things, it also contains puzzles, kind of like an escape room kind of experience, and you will use information that you have read in this book, that you might have noticed in scenarios, all of that stuff, to figure out the solution, and that is what unlocks you progress in this book. So there is a bit of an escape room puzzle in Frosthaven as well. Okay, so enough with talking about the vague zoomed out map and things that I don't have to show you yet. Instead, let's get on to the things that I do have in front of me, and that is 6 brand new starting classes for Frosthaven. But let's have a look at each of these in a bit more detail. So, in alphabetical order, let's start off with the Banner Spear, the human Banner Spear. Now, this is kind of a paladin class, so let's have the story for all of them. I don't want to spoil anything that happened in Gloomhaven, or particularly much that I've got of Frosthaven, but I think it's always worth reading these class descriptions because, the Cragheart's description in the original Gloomhaven, still an absolute favourite backstory for any of them. So, humans are a resilient race. Ever met with tragedy and war, humans have persevered through the ages to become the most prolific civilization, reaching across continents in search of new conquests. They may have overestimated their ability to survive with Frosthaven, however. Conquering the North is much more difficult and deadly. There are forces here, both known and unknown, that are best left undisturbed, but such things have not stopped humans in the past. At the head of this, thrust into the frozen unknown, are the Banner Spears. Tireless warriors, forever in search of glory and honour at the behest of the capital city of White Oak. Frosthaven has no need of pride, though. Cut off from the order they hold dear and faced with the harsh realities of the North, Banner Spears are forced to reevaluate what truly matters. Will they give up everything to protect the outpost, or will they flee from the face of chaos and destruction? Okay, and here is the Banner Spears' main side of their character sheet, and hopefully we can get a lovely, good focus on the mini. Remember, all of this stuff is prototype, but I think that gives you a pretty exciting idea of the Banner Spears mini. So something first to note with the Banner Spear is these special attacks. That's, if you remember from Gloomhaven, the attack where the grey hex is you, the Banner Spear, and the red hex is an enemy. So this would need you standing next to up to 3 enemies in a nice big wall like this. But we also have these green hexes, and they represent allies. That's a big part of the Banner Spear, that they need to be in certain positions with allies. So it's going to need some good cooperation to try and position yourselves in these particular ways. But as always, the kind of vague information as to when you are going in your initiatives and the things that monsters do messing you up, it's going to require some coordination and a little bit of luck as well. But if you do pull it off, these are powerful attacks. They give experience and they are not lost when they are used as well. Other things we can see on here, the Banner Spear can summon a banner of strength that empowers allies in range 2 and gives them extra attack and range, well, to one of their attacks anyway, and to give yourself a shield for as long as you need it, but all of your attacks have 1 fewer range. The Banner Spear, of course, has some great heals, so heal 3 affect all allies, but then the Banner Spear suffers a damage for each ally whose hit point value increased with the heal ability. And this one here, a ranged heal that has regenerate. Now, you might be familiar with this if you played the expansion to Gloomhaven Forgotten Circles. This was a status introduced there, but it's more prevalent in Frosthaven. So Regenerate is a status that a character can get where at the start of their turn they get a heal 1 action, but they lose it if they ever suffer damage. And on the bottom of these cards, we've got other things trying to help allies. So 2 allies within range 3 can move 3 as well. So helping, rather than the Banner Spear moving around, they want to get into enemies' faces, heal their allies, do their special attacks, and rather than having to run around themselves, try and help their allies move as well. And summon a reinforcement. Summons are everywhere in Gloomhaven, but this one in particular breaks the rules because the Banner Spear controls the movement. It's not usually summons are automatic things that will just go for the nearest enemy, whereas this particular reinforcement here, it's only got 1 health and 2 movements and no attack to speak of. But as a decoy, as a distraction, as a damage sponge, it can be sent to where it needs to be. And unlike most summons, it's not a lost card once that summon perishes. And then, I'm talking about the Banner Spear more than I thought I was going to for each class, but I want to say all these great things. Attack 2, and then for the rest of the round, all attacks against you have disadvantage. The shield 2, but it's only for ranged attacks, and anytime an enemy tries to move away from a hex adjacent to you, then they suffer 2 damage. This kind of protected but still powerful class. And well, I do have the cards up to level 4, so if you don't want any spoilers beyond the starting thing, then just close your eyes and cover your ears for a few seconds while I just talk about these 2 here. So we have Air Support and Boldening Blow, some level 4 cards. So this is just a normal ranged attack, but this Summon Trained Falcon, a summon here with flying on there and a decent attack as well. And so more moving allies around. And then look at this attack here. They are such powerful attacks. As I mentioned, they give XP and they are not lost, but you have to try and get this positioning right. So the Banner Spear right in the center, surrounded by enemies here, allies here, and you target one of the enemies, but then you bless all of your allies as well. So yeah, just loads of great options from the Banner Spear. So next up, we have the Quattral Blink Blade. And I'll say, yes, one of the ones I'm most excited about and will be using in the playthrough. So let's hear about the Blink Blade. Though diminutive, Quattrals should never be underestimated. Their intelligence, experience, and raw drive to succeed more than makes up for their size. They will often augment their bodies with machinery and whatever else it takes to get the job done. There are vague whispers that long ago many Quattrals inhabited the northern reaches, hunting for its secrets, but now the sight of one in Frosthaven is very rare indeed. The cold is not a forgiving climate for one so small. If a Blink Blade were to travel north, it may be because he has nowhere else to go, or because there is some quarry to be found. Blink Blades are assassins after all. Equipped with experimental temporal drives, they can alter the flow of time, moving faster than the eye can see, and striking harder than a creature 10 times their size. Such actions can only be performed in short bursts, however. There is always a cost to such great power. Now, we don't have a prototype mini for Blink Blade, so I'll be using the Tinkerer mini in the playthrough. The Blink Blade is one of the classes of Frosthaven that comes with a special rule card that describes how the new mechanics of the Blink Blade are going to work. So the Blink Blade has fast and slow, and before we take a good look at the cards, you can see that certain cards here are split between fast and slow, and many mention fast and slow that are going to give you more benefits for being fast. You don't get those if you're slow, and sometimes your actions are made a bit worse if you are slow. Well, basically, you choose at the start of your turn whether you are going to be fast or slow. If you're fast, you take a counter off this card, and of course, you can't be fast if you don't have the counters to spend, and then you apply everything that says fast on the cards that you're playing. If you're slow, you add a counter to the card if there aren't already 2 on there, and then you apply all of the slow stuff that's on the card. So by declaring slow, you can only ever have up to 2 counters on here, but of course, there are cards and secrets that will add more counters on here. So if we just take, for example, one of those cards that's split down the side, this Power Leak here. So the top is an attack for 4. If you're going fast, that attack targets 2 people and it poisons you. There is too much power to behold. But if you're going slow, it attacks for only 1 person, but it muddles you. Whereas the move on the bottom here, it's going to give you an XP and move 2 either way. If you're going fast, that turns into a move 7. But if you're going slow, it heals for 3, you and all your adjacent allies after you have moved about. So either way, it's a very powerful card. It's either a move 7, and that is a lot to be moving by, or quite a powerful move and heal as well if you can get yourself positioned properly. And you can see in the middle of all of the cards, they have a fast and slow initiative value as well. And we've got another one split down the middle like this. Oh, here's a couple. So we've got attack 3 there if you're going fast, add an attack and a wound and an XP. If you're going slow, though, it's only an attack 2. But you're going to have to go slow at certain times. And this one here, attack 2, 2 enemies standing next to you. If you're going fast, it adds 1 attack, gives you advantage and an XP. But if you're going slow, then it muddles everyone. So it's not just about being, better if you're going fast and you're going to have to put up with being slow. Sometimes you will want these particular slow things. It's all very situational and all really exciting of how you can apply all of this stuff. And just a more simple move there, it's move 5 if you're going fast, it's move 2 if you're going slow. Then we have the cards that aren't split down the middle as to what they are going to do based on being fast or slow. So Kinetic Transfer here, it gives you a move 2, but if you're going slow, you don't actually move anything, and you create ice. Then an attack 2, but if you're going fast, it also pushes for 2 and generates fire. So yeah, it's a very different card. So if you're going slow, it's create ice and attack 2. If you're going fast, it's move 2, attack 2, push, create fire. And this one, if you are going fast, it's attack 3, 1 XP, move 2. If you're going slow, it's just attack 2, move 1. And then, we can show a nice permanent bonus here. On your next 5 attack actions while fast, also perform move 3 as the final part of the action and get a couple of XP out of it as well. And then for the higher level cards, remember, avert your eyes if you really don't want to, and ears, if you don't want to know about the higher level ones. Let's just go for the level 4s again. So we have Precision Timing, add +1 attack to all of your attacks when you're slow, and +1 move to all of your moves when you're fast. Or this one here, Potential Energy. So it's attack 2 + X, where X is the number of counters that you have. So if you've been building up by going slow a lot, even while still going slow, you can get a really powerful effect from the attack or the move down here, which is based on the same thing, based on the number of counters that you have. There we go, extremely exciting Blink Blade. Next, the Deathwalker, the Valrath Deathwalker. So no race is more ill-suited for the northern climates than the Valrath, who make their homes far to the south in the Red Desert. There was once a great war in that region as humans fought back against the Valrath's northern expansions. The two races have since made peace, and the Valraths in particular have forsaken their barbaric, bloody ways. In more recent times, they have focused on economic strength over physical. There's a saying among the Valrath, in order to survive the cold, one must have a cold soul. This is apt for a Deathwalker, a nomad bent on atoning for the Valrath's past sins, by ensuring the souls of the dead find rest. Wherever great tragedy falls, a Deathwalker is usually not far behind, and their presence in Frosthaven does not bode well for the struggling outpost. So this is the second class that's going to be appearing in the playthrough. Very, very excited. And there we can see the Deathwalker. So the Deathwalker has another special rules card here. And so the Deathwalker is all about shadow tokens and putting them out on the board and doing particular actions with them. So the Deathwalker can have up to 5 out on the board. If you put more out, you have to move them around. Shadows can move about. They can't go through walls, but they can go on any other hex. And, the hexes still count as empty while a shadow is in there. So, enemies will still go in there and summons can be put there and things. And if a shadow token gets taken away, which a lot of the abilities will end up doing, then you have to treat the rest of the action. If it relies on a particular number of shadow tokens, then you adjust that accordingly. So first of all, we can look at things like Call to the Abyss and Shadow Step. So, a permanent ability, every time you kill an enemy, you can put a shadow token in the hex the enemy occupied. Or, the bottom ability that you don't lose, place a shadow token in a hex within range 2. Or, place a shadow token in the hex you occupy, then move 5, you do lose that one. And then move 3, the movement must end in a hex with a shadow, so they give you more options to move about, and then attack 2. So you're getting shadows out onto the board, and then once they're out, we could do things like Restless Souls. All allies and enemies adjacent to or occupying a hex with a shadow suffer a damage, or move all of your shadow tokens around. The shadows can empower attacks here, so we have a range 2 attack 2, but you can remove any number of shadows within range 2, and for each one that you do remove, you get 2 attack, a range, and an experience point. And we also have this great ability down here. Wound targets all enemies that are in a hex with a shadow. And if any enemy moves into a hex with a shadow for the rest of the round, they also gain a wound. We have teleport to a hex with a shadow, and you can choose to remove that shadow to perform a loot action and get an XP. You can summon a shadow beast that has to go in a hex where a shadow was. Or we have, a heal that affects yourself and everybody that's in a shadow space. And move all your shadow tokens up to 5 hexes can be really important for pulling these things off. And then finally, we have the type where you can perform abilities as if you were in a space where a shadow is, which can also open tons of opportunities as well based on the amazing places where those shadows can end up. So, attack 2 targets all adjacent enemies, but act as if you yourself are where a shadow is. So, you don't necessarily have to put yourself in the thick of the action if you have these cards available to you. This one here, a more powerful one, but you do lose the card. Attack 4, all adjacent enemies. Poison, but also act as if you are where a shadow token is. And let's look at a level 4 card. So, skip a few seconds if you want. So we have Deepening Despair here from level 2. It's an attack 5, and it can target anyone at any range as long as they're adjacent to at least 2 shadows, and it brings dark out. Or, for the remainder of the round, you and all allies can treat any hex with a shadow as to being adjacent to any other hex with a shadow for the purpose of moving about. And then the other one I will choose to show pulled across a level 4 card because it shows off one of the brand new statuses, Bane. So you can target an enemy adjacent to a shadow, you remove the shadow and get 2 XP. Bane means at the end of a figure's next turn, they suffer 10 damage. This condition is removed if they get healed, and they still get the heal. But yeah, that's like casting death in Final Fantasy or something like that, really. 10 damage, unless it's a boss or a particularly tanky enemy. That is a significant chunk of damage. So that is the Deathwalker. Next up, the Inox Drifter. The Inox are a proud and stubborn race with imposing forms and unrivaled physical strength. Many of their tribes were destroyed when the humans expanded across the continent, leaving only scattered settlements hidden deep in the forests. Strength means little when you refuse to cooperate. Many Inox have taken this lesson to heart and have joined with human society, offering their prowess. Still others, however, continue to fight against the human expansion. And then there are the Drifters, those who have given up on all allegiances, human or Inox, and travel the continent looking out for their own survival. It's a hard life surviving day to day off the land, being prepared for any possible encounter, but there is a certain satisfaction that comes with it, and those that truly wish to test their skills travel north into the harshest environment possible. So here we have the Drifter, and here we go, you can get a look at the mini as well. So the Drifter has a lot of persistent abilities, these things out here that will stay out until they are finished with. So the next 6 times you perform a melee attack, add 2 attack to it. The next 6 times you perform a move, add 2 move. And as you go over the spaces with XP, you earn that XP. As well as having tons and tons of these, so the next time you perform a ranged attack, add 2 attack. The next time you perform a heal, it's plus 2 heal. The next time an enemy in range 2 performs an attack, you get retaliate 2 range 2. Next 6 times you suffer damage, gain shield 1 for that attack. So all of these persistent things are everywhere in the Drifter's ability cards, but you might have already noticed that tons of other abilities talk about move the character token on 2 of your persistent abilities back 1 space, or abilities that did other things. So a heal 2 at range 3, move a character token back on one of your abilities. Attack 1 at range 3, not a great attack, but also move the token back. So instead of just getting these things 6 times and only getting 3 XP, if you can time this right, not only can you get more uses, but you could maybe keep it going over an XP space again and again and keep reeling that off. And move 2 and move a token back. Attack 2, move a token back. Attack 3, and if you kill a target with that attack, you move a token back. Or what about one of the X cards? A permanent thing that stays out. Anytime you kill an enemy, move the character token back on one of your things. But also, something to always bear in mind in Gloomhaven, especially with all of these persistent cards that stay out there. Once every time you've played all of your cards, and hopefully you've played them all before you need to rest, you lose a card every time you rest, or you lose a card every time you play it for a powerful ability. And when these persistent cards are stuck out there, they're not in your hand to be used. And so it's a balance between wanting to have all of these things out and wanting to have enough cards that you will survive through the scenario. So let's look at the higher level cards. Skip ahead a little chunk if you want to miss this out. What about these? I really like these. So Shockwave. It's just a normal move to and push to an adjacent enemy. But the top one, the next 6 times you perform a melee attack, all the enemies adjacent to the target suffer a damage as well. Or this one, a nice little attack 2 to 2 enemies there. But the bottom ability, the next 6 times you move a character token back, move a character token back. So there we go. That is the Drifter. And now it's time for Germinate. So the Harrower Germinate. A harrower is not one single life form, but rather a swarm of thousands of insects that have developed a hive mind intelligence. They were, in fact, the first intelligent form of life to emerge on the continent. They've always maintained their distance from the operations of humans and other races, concerning themselves with their own mysterious machinations. When harrowers do interact with other races, they shape their swarms into a vaguely human form so as to minimize the other party's discomfort. Not all harrower swarms, however, act as a single unit. Rarely, a swarm develops that cannot come to a single mind. Instead, it forms into a stable equilibrium of 2 wills that fight to exert influence over its collective consciousness. The Germinate, as the phenomenon is called, will shift between 2 wildly different configurations, each with its own abilities and motives. So we, of course, have special rules for this Germinate, this double character, effectively. So the Germinate has 2 different states, represented by 2 different decks of cards. And you can see that the card count is usually, 11, 10, 12. Germinate has 7 and 7. So when the Germinate is picking cards at the start of the round, they can only pick cards from the state that they're currently in. And then we have symbols on certain cards that will show you need to switch your state for the next round. They have 1 discard and lost pile, and when they long rest, they can choose which state they would like to start in next time. But a really big thing to think about with the Germinate is that you will be in a particular state and you can exhaust yourself even while you've got a load of cards left if you don't have 2 cards to play from the current state that you're in. So yeah, there is a whole kind of splitting your mind thing going on to keep track of all of this stuff for the Germinate. But in return for that kind of extra mental exercise, you get some pretty cool things happening. So if we look at some cards from the left side of Germinate, we have some really cool area of effect attacks, like the Flailing Tendrils here that shoots out in this this great big kind of spokes pattern and will attack 2 and muddle all of the enemies in the target area. But it'll also muddle the allies as well. And a move that can trigger a state switch. But then we have the Hornet Stinger here. Again, a load of enemies targeted, only for attack 1, but it pierces up to 3 armor, poisons them all, can also potentially poison allies there as well, and can also trigger a state switch. And a nice little move and heal on the bottom there as well. Always, if you don't want to switch the state, you can always choose to treat the bottom of a card as move 2, as you always were able to in Gloomhaven. You can have great permanents like on your next 4 attacks, add 1 attack while you're in this state, or 2 attack if you switch to the other state. A permanent that will let you switch states when you play it, but also after causing enemies to suffer 3 or more damage on your turn, you can consume all of the waning elements, even if there aren't any, to create an element of your choice. And then there are some great cards like Frosthaven here that use elements for a powerful attack, an attack 5 with armor piercing, but if you consume earth or ice, then you can add an attack, a pierce, and an XP to the attack as well. So that's looking at some things on the left side. Let's switch over to the right state, where we have things like Into My Embrace. It's a lovely heal to yourself. It's heal, it strengthens you, so you've got advantage for the next round. Regenerate as well, so you'll keep healing until you are damaged again. But also an attack at range 3 that pulls enemies towards you and will let you switch states. So, dragging enemies that are far away towards you and then switch to that melee form as well. We also have, ranged heals and move and jump. A similar thing to the permanent on the other side. This is when you suffer damage, you gain shield 1 while you're in this status, or shield 2 if you switch to the other state as well. We have Flaring Hatred here. That is an attack at range 4 or 5 specifically. But you can choose to curse yourself to add a target, or muddle yourself, or muddle yourself to add 2 attack to it as well. And this state isn't without its groovy area of effect attacks. It's a ranged one here, so apply that shape to anywhere within range 3. It's for an attack 4, but you can consume elements to add an attack and an XP, or add 4 more targets and an XP to it as well. You do lose it once you have done this amazing attack, but yeah, you could really tear enemies apart with such a powerful attack. Especially if you have gotten the element out, which you are more easily able to do because this state has got a top card that has got the same thing. After you move 3 or more hexes, rather than doing a certain amount of damage, you can consume all the waning elements to generate an element of your choice. And so, not only great for your allies, but it's great if they stay out for the Germinate abilities that want to consume them as well. And then for more advanced cards, skip ahead a little bit, but I will be showing off a new status. So here we go, level 2 for the left status. It's an attack 2 for 2 enemies that are in a line in front of Germinate, but it also causes brittle, which is the other new status. This means that the next time the figure suffers damage, they suffer double damage and then lose the brittle status. And a cool ability on the bottom, retaliate 3 and gain an XP every time you retaliate. That stays out for the rest of the round. And for the other state, how about Firebugs? An attack 3 at range 3 that can target 4 enemies. It is a lost attack, as you might imagine. It's a really powerful thing. And if you can consume Dark, it will muddle them all and give you an extra XP. If you can consume Fire, it will be an attack 4 on 4 different enemies if you can get them all in range. And a nice move on the bottom here, a move 4, consume any element to generate any element and switch states. So many options and combinations here with the Germinate. And last but not least, the Aether Necromancer. Aethers were once human, but a tragedy long ago caused them to lose their physical form, scattering it across the infinite planes. Those who willed their psyche back together returned to a world they no longer recognized, and so they left, traveling the planes in search of knowledge and other darker things. Occasionally they return, but their purposes are inscrutable, and their methods bewildering. Aethers draw energy from the planes, which are full of useful and terrible things. Necromancers are able to tap into the wells of life found in other planes and infuse it into living things on this one, or at least things that were once living. Invariably, some of the necromancer's own life force is transferred as well. Many necromancers go mad through this constant push and pull of life and death, but some are capable of taming the wild energy, allowing them to perform unimaginable feats. So here is the beautiful Necromancer mini here. Definitely standing in front of a fan for a perfect modelling shot. So, as we mentioned, Necromancer is all about manipulating life and death. So, of course, a Necromancer is very adept at summoning skeletons. There are 3 summon shambling skeleton cards just in the 1 cards. They've got decent health. They've got 3 health, 2 attack, 2 movement. And a nice little persistent ability out here. The next 3 times you suffer damage, you can ignore the damage. There is also another summon just in the level 1 card for a Raging Corpse that's got 6 health and 3 damage, but can only move 1 at a time. And you can also, with the bottom ability, poison all enemies adjacent to one of your summons. So we know that summons act before their characters get to act, and they kind of AI things that will just pursue enemies. But what about these cards? Command the Wretched. One of your summoned allies can perform a move and attack with you controlling the action rather than just behaving automatically, and that will of course influence what they do automatically in the future. And this one here, it's lost, but this can be 2 of your summoned allies can perform an attack and then curse and consume Night to poison them and get XP with you choosing the actions as well. Or how about a Heal Yourself? X+1, where X is the number of your summoned allies. And as I mentioned, this deck has got a lot of them. Or what about Malicious Conversion? Attack 4. If this attack kills the target, play a summon shambling skeleton action from a card in your discard pile without suffering the 2 damage that you normally would. You do lose that card once you've played it for that. Or even better, if you can get all of these things out, how about Ritual Dagger? All of your summoned allies can perform an extra turn with you controlling the actions, but you do take 2 damage, 2 XP, and you do lose the card for having done that. So let's look at a higher level selection as well. I just want to show all of these off. So how about Grave Digging? It's another summon shambling skeleton, But, you know, these summons aren't lost once they die, like many summons are. But the bottom one, play a card from your discard pile for its summon action and suffer 1 damage. So not only is it an extra chance to play these without having to rest to get those cards back, it's suffering less damage than you would have for actually playing the card from your hand at the time, and generates some earth as well. Or, you know, Putrid Cloud, kill one of your summons to do an attack 2 and poison to everything that was adjacent to the ally that you killed. Or what about this? Flesh Shield, a level 4 card. Anytime you suffer damage for the rest of the scenario, you may have one of your summoned allies suffer the damage instead, and with the rate that you can get those skeletons back out, that can be a really, really effective way of avoiding damage. Or the bottom ability that isn't lost if you choose to pull this card back, that isn't lost. The next time one of your summoned allies takes damage, negate that damage and you suffer 1 damage instead. So kind of polar opposites here, you taking some damage for the allies or the allies taking damage for you, depending on what you chose to put out there. So there we go. That is what I've got to show you for the prototype. There are new enemy types and things that we will get into in the playthrough. Now, I do have 3 scenarios that I can show off. I won't be specific about them yet, but when the campaign launches on Kickstarter, there will be a tabletop simulator module out there for you to try this out yourself if you want to, and there are print and play files available for those starting classes. There is another community-driven campaign going on where the designer Isaac Childress is coming up with a new campaign, and at the end of each of them, there is a choice that the community as a whole can vote for, and then there will be a new scenario based on that choice. There's so much good stuff happening. But yeah, there are 3 scenarios that I won't give you the story and stuff. I'll be kind of vague about it. But they are designed to show off another key thing in Frosthaven, that it isn't, you know, people criticize Gloomhaven a bit for most of the scenarios being kill all enemies. I think that there was so much else going on in Gloomhaven that was never a negative for us. There's so many different enemy types and situations that we've been put in and combinations of characters and things. But we do have 3 great examples of scenarios that don't include that. So we have a scenario where we have some city guards that we saw as enemies in the original Gloomhaven. Well, we have different enemies in this scenario, and there are city guards there. We only win the scenario if we kill all the enemies, but also save at least one of the city guards, and they will kind of have AI actions to perform as well. There is ice flows where we are on a boat and we win the scenario by stopping it from sinking, by, you know, keeping going long enough to stop the ship from sinking, and there will of course be events as we progress through it. But the one that I love the most and am most excited to show off is the derelict elevator, and the goal is to reach the bottom. And of course, as this elevator goes down, there will be all sorts of nasty things jumping on to try and stop us from reaching the bottom, or at least reaching it in an alive and kicking state. So that is what the playthrough is going to be on the 31st of March when the Frosthaven campaign launches. It's going to be the Deathwalker and the Blinkblade attempting to get to the bottom of the derelict elevator. And I can't wait for it, and I hope that you're excited too, and that you will join me for that playthrough on Tuesday, or any point after Tuesday. Don't think that you can't watch it if you can't make it on Tuesday. You know how the world works though, don't you? I'm just saying things in this weird excited state that I get into as videos end. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this overview. That's it for now. But yes, there will be a playthrough and there will be my first impressions and things, but I think you can probably get a good idea of what my first impressions are from my attitude towards this video. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you will join me for a future one. Subscribe if you want hundreds of playthroughs for videos and things. I have a Patreon if you'd like to help me keep making these videos. That's in the description as well. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for the next video. Bye everyone.